Welcome to Visionaries, a twice-weekly podcast from Overcome. Each week, we talk to some of the most powerful and successful people in gaming about topics you won't often hear asked elsewhere. I'm your host, Jacob Wolf, an award-winning former ESPN investigative journalist. Today, we're welcoming on Brandon Atrioc Ewing, a highly successful content creator known for gaming, marketing, and business strategy. This one's a bit more personal. When I first met Brandon, he was a mid-level marketing staffer at Twitch, the Amazon-owned live streaming platform that, back then, hadn't quite grown to what it is today. Brandon now works at NVIDIA, the computer parts manufacturer. But like many in 2020, Brandon took to a new hobby while isolated due to COVID: content creation. With some luck, but a whole lot of work, Brandon's found a massive amount of success as a content creator. In January 2020, Brandon had 664 subscribers on YouTube. Now, on his main channel alone, he has 369,000. On Twitch, his former employer, his channel grew from 4,275 followers to 275,000. Yet, he's chosen to keep his day job and figure out the balance between streaming and making videos almost every day while working a 9-to-5 at one of the biggest companies in the world. He also takes a pretty critical eye to what endorsement deals he takes, in a world where many shady companies are trying to activate to an impressionable audience. So we wanted to talk about that responsibility and how gaming and entertainment is changing. Brandon Atrioc Ewing, welcome to Visionaries. I guess the first part I want to ask, because there are a bunch of creators out there, and this is going to go across a bunch of different platforms where those people consume content, and the people here in Twitter as well. How did you do it? How did you grow that significantly in 2.5 years? What's the secret?
Yeah, listen, that's a very flattering question. I think there's been a lot of people who have grown a lot faster than that. It's cool. I mean, what I would say is, I think if you look at the chart of that graph, it all came in certain key spikes when I figured out a couple of things. And I don't want to overstate here. Some of it's luck. Some of it's, when I was early on, one of the hardest things to do on Twitch is to get your first 100 viewers. I knew that from working at Twitch. I know that from now hanging out with smaller creators, from being an actor on the platform. And I got the first 100 viewers simply because I was collaborating with a friend of mine, a Best Buy employee by the name of Ludwig, who ended up becoming sorry, can I curse on this thing? Okay, I'll keep it to a minimum for if you're sponsored or something. Who became, one of the biggest streamers of all time and absolutely blew up. All right. So there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that gives you an easy start, right? We played Mario races together. We did a bunch of stuff together back when he had 50 viewers. And as he grew, I was in all of his videos at the start, and it helped give me the start. So, but even still from there, it was pretty low to flat in the low 100s. And the main thing that I think that changed my growth trajectory was, number one, was I started doing things that I first thought, you could never do on Twitch. And I want to give credit to a guy named Devin Nash. Have you heard of Devin Nash? You know Devin Nash? He's a grocery guy, super nice. And back in 2020, 2021, I remember he would do streams on marketing and business and all kind of stuff that I'm super passionate about and interested in, but thought nobody on Twitch would ever care about. And he did these to like 1,000 viewers. And I was like, holy moly, you got 1,000 viewers? And you could talk about, not gaming stuff or not drama stuff, just talking about business. And so I started a series called Marketing Monday, because I'm very passionate about marketing. I've always wanted to be good at it. It's like the career I've chosen for myself, and I read books about it and I want to be good at it. So I was like, I'll just talk about it. It'll help me get better at my own job. And it'll be something I'm passionate about. And usually I've noticed that when you're passionate about something, even if it's something stupid, people will listen because people like when you're excited. So when I started doing that, I started getting my own, sort of unique audience. And those videos started to do pretty well. So that started to get me some growth. I started to review funny ads. I started talking about marketing. And I noticed every Monday I would get this big spike in viewers. I started to get 1,000, 2,000, 2,100. And not all of them would stick around for the rest of the week, but some of them would. And so that was my big, early growth pattern. And then the second thing is entirely different, but I turned out to be pretty good at a video game called Hitman. I just started to be incredibly passionate about it. And I started to get world records and stuff. And when I made videos about that, I would get, sometimes 1 million views on YouTube, and then they started to show up. So I had these two conflicting audiences that would show up: people that wanted to see marketing and business talk and people that wanted to see me play Hitman. And between the two of them, I sort of forged a community. And from there, I've had a lot of fun with it.
Let's rewind for a second. You started the Arizona State Esports Club. When I tweeted out that we were going to have you on the show today as well, somebody pointed out some of the StarCraft content that you created even before that and during that. And so you're one of these people that I think kind of falls into this category that you started off as an esports guy. I would say you probably still are an esports guy as a consumer, but you've transitioned into gaming content, kind of more broad gaming content, and even, like you said, non-gaming content that maybe like the same audience is interested in. Did you determine that it was best to kind of move away from that, from esports related stuff, or put it to the side, or did you try your hand at both?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I determined it. I think the world determined it for everything. I think esports CEOs are determining it right now that that core esports content doesn't necessarily kill it. But I'll tell you my story. So I got really into the Korean StarCraft scene back when that was the biggest esport. And I would write for this website called Team Liquid, which is now one of the biggest esports teams. And I was super passionate about it. This is like late high school into college. And I was like, this is the future, man. One day this is going to be big in the West. And I'd always think like, what's stopping esports from getting big over here the way it is in Korea with stadiums and big prize pools and teams? And I thought it's bad marketing. I looked around and like everyone just thinks it's nerdy and lame and like it could be cool. So we should market better. And that's what made me want to, major in marketing. And I thought I would be the one, I'm going to be the one that really helps esports get big in the West. I'm going to market it well. It turns out it did not need me. It turns out it needed Drake to play Fortnite with Ninja. Like, there was definitely that it was happened well without my input, but that was what I sort of saw myself doing. I wanted to like help esports get big here in the West. And so I studied marketing and I was really into esports. And then I got really into the industry. I started going to all the events. I was doing freelance work for Team Liquid, Machinima, IGN. I was doing all sorts of esports stuff. And it led me to get a job at Twitch. There's actually a guy in the space right now, Ben Goldhaber, Fishsticks. He's my old boss at Twitch. He saw some of my stuff. We met up at events and he ended up giving me a job that changed my life. And I started working at Twitch when it was like 100 employees. And from there, I started to see more of the business side of it. And I started to realize, I mean, this took many years, but you start to realize that, especially as Twitch grew, people didn't care too much outside of the very biggest events that they're passionate about. It was tough to get like, I don't know, it started to become more obvious to me that like just chatting and things like that were the future, not only of Twitch, but of sort of this whole gaming as a content platform. Early days, I think everyone used to think it's going to be the tournaments or that's it. Nothing else matters. Like that's the most important thing. But nowadays, like XQC on a Wednesday beats 99% of all esports tournaments ever. It's just a different environment. So that factored in. And then I also started to realize that the business economics behind teams, which is what I used to want to work for, were pretty bad. Like, a lot of the teams aren't even making money and they're operating at a loss to get market share. And their whole revenue plan was sponsorships, which was to get, users to become fans and get excited. But like users are much more likely to do that directly through somebody they like rather than through the middleman of a team. So I don't know, all this stuff sort of hit me and I started to drift away from it. And when I got my next job at NVIDIA, I started as esports marketing, but I really had a passion for trying to do more than that. And so I branched out and eventually changed off of that into a broader marketing role, which I really like.
Something you said when you were starting to answer that question is esports CEOs made that decision. It's something I've been writing about a lot in my newsletter, which has like sort of a more broad gaming audience as well, is that esports is not as big as once we were sold to in terms of the Newzoo reports, etc. And
remember the hockey killer? We're killing hockey. We're going to kill basketball next. It's like 2 years away. And all those growth charts and projections were very thin, very, 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 I wouldn't say fraudulent, but they didn't stack up.
I would say that they just measured based off of what you said. They were the biggest events of the year. And it's like comparing, for example, the Super Bowl. How many people watch the Super Bowl that don't consume NFL content for the rest of the year, right? They could not care about Bengals Ravens week 7, but they 100% watch the Super Bowl because it's like this huge social event. It's the same thing with Worlds, the same thing with the International, the same thing with Evo, the same thing with the Counter-Strike majors, right? Like a ton of people show up for those and they all watch those and they break these crazy viewing records of millions and millions of people, but then, they don't care about week 2 LCS, right? They just don't. And so it's really interesting that you kind of pointed it out in your answer too. And I read an article a few months ago at Bloomberg, and it's funny that Ben is here in this space, that quotes Ben and also quotes DJ Wheat, your former colleagues. And talks about Twitch moving away from sort of what it was in its infancy, right? Like it was esports for a very long period of time before you worked there, during your time there a little bit, and then has decided to pivot away more into creators. They're not doling out the giant deal that they did with the Overwatch League for 90 million over 2 years. That's not something that the league that Twitch likes to do anymore. Instead, now they are sometimes competing for the big streamers, but sometimes they're not, and they're just letting people walk if the big checks, aren't sustainable from their point of view. And the one thing I thought that article did, and it was really well written by Cecilia D'Anastasio on Bloomberg. Go find it if you
she's great.
want to read it. But I think it sort of, I find some sympathy in the fact that like niche sports is not as big as once we thought. Like I know there are a lot of people that are very passionate about it, but the business is the business and it's real, and the numbers aren't there, and the consumption numbers aren't there, especially from a revenue perspective. And so I want to ask you, when you were at Twitch, as much as you can say, did you start seeing that shift before you left to go to NVIDIA?
Yeah, I think I saw it personally. I'm trying to think if I saw it internally, because when I left, they were still big on the whole Twitch esports. Let's build the league for Rocket League. Let's really build an esports infrastructure where Twitch is actually making the leagues for these companies. And that has pivoted way more to Twitch Rivals, where they just make fun, streamer-friendly content where it's more about the personalities and that kind of thing. So, but that was after I left. So I don't know. I think the beginning seeds were there. I definitely saw it though, because I was a consumer of Twitch massively. I watched esports and streamers all the time, and I just started to notice that more and more the big numbers would come from things that were totally unrelated to esports, and it was just more fun to watch. Sometimes you'd find a streamer and you'd actually like watching them, and you'd come back to him week after week, him or her week after week. And I think one thing I do remember, and I don't think this is so long ago, so it's not like a leak or anything, but I remember being in a monetization meeting at Twitch, and they were thinking about how to monetize esports. And when you looked at the numbers and we talked about it, it was so obvious that like monetizing Summit stream is so easy. People love him. They come back, they sub, they donate, they give bits. It was a very simple process. And monetizing like a Smash Major on Twitch was very hard, because nobody wants to sub for a tournament they watched one time. Like they're not coming back week after week, and they don't donate because they don't feel a personal connection to the person running the event. They don't, LSCS Channel 3 is not like something you. So it was just something I started to notice, was like, wow, what is the real economics here of that? And it stuck in my brain for sure. But I can't say that I saw a major shift when I was there.
I want to talk about that rise of the influencer, because it is much different. You mentioned Summit. I think of him, and I think of some of the other people that were very big on Twitch back in 2012, 2013, 2014, Phantom Lord, Nightblue, etc. That level of celebrity is way different than the celebrity of Ludwig, even yourself, but Ludwig and Dr. Disrespect and Ninja now. Like those people are true A-list celebrities in their own tier now. And they certainly, the people that were their, peers and equals back then, are nowhere near the level of sort of success that those people are now. And I want to ask you, why do you think that's changed? In terms of, do you think it's audience related, like audience age related? How has the content consumption changed and made gaming bigger, and the careers of those types of people and yourself bigger from a revenue perspective?
I love that you keep saying "and yourself." Please, there's not close at all. I'm a very, very, very small little niche compared to the people you're talking about, but that's very flattering of you. I do think about this a lot. I think it's super interesting, and I think there's a number of reasons, perfect storm of reasons, Jacob. But I think one of them is, like you said, shifting audience consumption habits, where it's like Gen Z and younger, just online 24/7. It's 100% online. And that's where they're consuming content. And people that are building stuff for that audience relationship are doing better. So all traditional media is dying. TV, everything is dying. And even streaming services kind of feel at this point a little dated. Like it's already been 15, 20 years since Netflix first came out. And it already seems a little old. And so live streaming, it feels very cutting edge and very new. And it's something that, as more people are growing up in this new environment, are watching. So that's the first thing. Second major thing are a couple key shifts. One is like, this happened right as I was leaving Twitch, but one was a game called Fortnite, which sounds stupid, but Fortnite and then later Among Us was such a big cultural phenomenon that bridged the gap for a lot of people that, I don't know, it's a bad word, but you might call them normies, people that are just kind of on the edge or the sphere of the hardcore gaming space,
Totally.
it branched them in, and they got their first taste of live streaming. And it turns out that they a lot of them liked it. They liked what they saw, and it was enjoyable to them, and they made relationships, and they formed connections with these creators. And so they stuck around. The numbers, if you look at Twitch, I mean, they've stuck around. And then the third thing, which is the least happy one, is COVID. So COVID pulled a lot of tech adoption rates across a lot of industries forward 10 years. So where live streaming might be in 10 years, it happened like now because of COVID just bringing so many people to having to live entirely online for a period of time. And I mean, things like work from home trends and everything were pulled forward way, 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 way fast. So I think one of them is live streaming. And so we're seeing that adopting way, way faster than we might have thought at previous growth rates.
How do you think short form content, even offside of Twitch and offside of YouTube, because I would consider Twitch and YouTube long form content, right? Like, yeah, there are stuff on YouTube that's shorter, but like what does really well is sort of 10 to 15 minutes, right? Or 8 to 15 minutes, let's call it. But TikTok has really changed this conversation also. Now we're talking 60 to 90 seconds. That's all you get, right? And I think that gaming is, from my perspective, as someone who's 25, I consume TikTok on a regular basis, and I am a Zoomer on the older side of things. I think there is so much opportunity left on the table right now in gaming and TikTok. Like there are some successful gaming and TikTok, gaming TikTok creators, but not nearly as many as there are in other categories. And I think that it's a little bit of a slow adoption. But I want to ask you how you think TikTok has changed gaming content creation so far, and how that bleeds into building a successful personality around Twitch, around YouTube, and bleeding into other platforms.
It's a very funny question that you asked that, because right before our call now, like literally, I don't know, 40 minutes ago, I was hiring a TikTok editor. I was talking to him on the phone and figuring out what I'm going to charge and what I'm going to pay and what he's going to do. And it's an interesting thing because it's very important. Like you said, I think if you look at all the trend lines and the growth rate and where everyone's at, TikTok is eating everyone's lunch, and it's starting with all the social media companies. It's destroying, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but it's also making a play towards YouTube, Google. I mean, everything. It's a very popular app that keeps growing and is taking over a lot of spaces, and you ignore it at your own peril. So as a content creator who is 6 years older than you, I'm 31, man. I'm out of date for TikTok. I am trying to figure it out for what it means to be a creator on that space. 100%. It's interesting. I don't think I have an answer yet, but it's something I'm studying and trying to figure out and looking into. I will say gaming is not a vertical that is as easy to pack into 15 seconds, 30 seconds. I think people still enjoy the YouTube length for gaming type videos, but I'm sure someone will crack the code on how to do it well on.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I've seen on TikTok right now has been very much just like, here's a clip of my clip, right? Like if you have a clips channel, right? And a bunch of other, high profile creators do too. And it's like, here's 90 seconds of that 6-minute thing that I posted on YouTube, right? Like it's that, like, trim it down. The attention span and just sort of the scrolling behavior is really interesting to me. And I agree. I don't think anybody's quite figured it out for gaming yet.
What's interesting is like, so I think the way my Twitch started to grow is I would put these YouTube videos out that started to do really well. Because on Twitch, if you have a great day, you stream an amazing stream, it doesn't really matter unless everyone's telling their friends about it and like saying, you got to see his next one. It doesn't do anything for you. But if you make a great YouTube video, people that see that want to tune into the stream. So YouTube was a great discovery mechanism and a growth story for my Twitch channel. And my understanding is for all the up and coming creators is a lot of them are doing the same thing that I was doing, but for TikTok. Like TikTok is much more a part of how they get noticed and how they get their channel out there and show that they're funny and people want to stop in and check them out. So that's super interesting. And that's a cool use case. I haven't done it yet, but I'm looking into it.
So I want to talk about, because you have this really interesting sort of dynamic that most people in the industry don't. So you mentioned that you're very close to big creator like Ludwig, right? You've been there for his rise as a friend and seeing that as a spectator from the side. And then also you work with big creators in your full-time role, right? In terms of dealing with kind of, what it looks like to activate with them, etc. The deals that these people are getting is, just for the people kind of unfamiliar with what that looks like. When we're talking creator deals, can you summarize kind of more broadly what creator deals look like for some of these top people without going into specifics?
Yeah, I can't obviously go into specifics, but I think people are more aware now than they may have been a few years ago, where it's like so crazy. but the numbers are very high. People are making tons of money. And I noticed this even when Twitch was a lot smaller and I was working there, you'd think like if someone has 1,000 viewers, they make this amount. And if they have 5,000 viewers, they make 5 times, right? But it's not the case. It's a very exponential graph. From 1,000 to 5,000 to 25,000, the numbers start to get astronomical. The top end of creators, and this is way above where I'm at, the top end of creators are making really, really insane money, especially this past year. Now, it remains to be seen how much of that holds up. We're heading into kind of a shaky economy, and I know companies are tightening budgets and things are changing for sure. I don't know it's going to be if 2022 or 3 are going to be as big as 21 was. But in 2021, if you were a big creator, like anything you did printed money, and companies were definitely offering very, very large sums for activations around even the smallest things.
In terms of the mentality that comes with that, I want to ask you about that too, because I deal a lot reporting on creators, reporting on streamers. I've been working on a story now for like 16 or 17 months that involves some really big creators as well, and some like a little bit more controversial stuff involved with it. And a common trait that I've heard from interviewing agents, from interviewing lawyers that work for these people, etc., when they go on the record, is that there is this mentality that I think some of these agents are now trying to curb, which is my 15 minutes of fame. I am really famous right now. Let me milk every single dollar that I can get out of my fame before it goes away. And there's plenty of cases in where like that's true, right? People like lost their fame, they went into their irrelevancy.
Sure.
I hope they stockpiled tens of millions of dollars in retirement funds, et cetera, to coast for the next 70 or 50 years of their life, depending on how old they are. Walk me through sort of how you think about that individually, but also the people that you talk to think about that, and how is it
Yeah.
changing? Do you think people are becoming more long-term focused?
That is a great question. So I think I have a unique perspective for me specifically because I still work full time. Like I have a full time job. I work in NVIDIA during the day and I only stream at night. And honestly, until very recently, this stream was. I mean, now it's big enough that I can't deny that it makes money and it's profitable and it's cool to have that extra income. But for the most of the time, I was doing it because, especially in early COVID when I started it, it was like a mental health reprieve. It was like nice to be able to get online, play a chill game, and like talk to people. And I've always been a gamer and a grinder, and so this there's a part of your brain that always wants to be productive. That's always like screaming at you. You
Sure.
shouldn't sit around and play games. But if I did it on stream, that brain was quiet. So I could get online, I could play games that I wanted to play, and it felt like I was being productive. And so that was how I started doing it. It wasn't a financial thing. So mine's a little different. I don't see myself long term as a creator at all. I never did. And so I'm only doing if it doesn't last or it does last, it won't, it's fun while it lasted, is sort of what I think. But I do talk to a lot of creators, and I have heard all the different sides of this. One thing I'll say is the people that are more on the esports side of it should think this way. This is something that I would give as advice, to be quite honest. If you are like a pro player and you have got a ton of Twitter followers and everyone's really loving your skill at a game, that just by definition is not going to last. Like that is a thin period of time where that's hyper relevant, and you should try to like make a splash with it. I think there's so many cases I've seen of esports players that think it'll last longer than it will, and at the end of the day, there's always someone else who's probably like 16 who's grinding like crazy who's going to be able to beat you at your game pretty soon. So unless you've built the personality or the hardcore team relationship, careers are pretty short in the esports, and it's not good and it should be different. But I'm just telling the way I've seen it is like it's risky. On the big creator side, I think consumers are developing such a deep relationship with these people. Whether this is a good or bad thing, for society is a larger tool, but I'm just noticing it as it is. People are developing such a relationship that can last a pretty long time. And so I think creators that have really done that well, like a Pokimane, for example, feel very comfortable playing a longer game. I don't think Pokimane is trying to make as many dollars as she can in the moment, so she can cash out. I think she's I think she's playing a longer game. So I think some of the big creators are like that. But end of the day, nobody knows, Jacob, because this is all so new. Like you're talking about someone like XQC being big. Nobody knows where he's going to be in 5 years, even if he's amazing, even if content is great, because it's all new. There's nobody like him before. You can't look back. This is a brand new industry with brand new stakes, brand new size. So I don't think anyone has a true answer for you that can be confident.
So I want to talk about that from the business perspective, because something happened in 2020 that's really interesting to me. And obviously we don't know all the reasons for this happening, but Dr. Disrespect was banned off of Twitch. and has never come back. The company has not tried to mend that relationship. They've just left him off. And I think that he is, and then we saw shortly thereafter, right around the same time, Ninja and Shroud take these massive deals to go to Mixer at the same time. And so
Yeah.
here is Twitch losing three of its biggest creators on the platform. And it's almost like it didn't skip a beat, right? Like XQC and some of the other people filled in this platform. I'm sure there are users that lost, but the platform has done such a good job at retaining people on Twitch, just the audience on Twitch, even when the creators move on to somewhere else. And that's happening right now a lot with YouTube. But those people are still on Twitch. They just go find something else. And so we've seen Twitch not as competitively bid as YouTube and Facebook for some of these creators. And I want to ask you why you think that is, why they have decided not to actively bid in the same millions of dollars that we're talking about when we see platform deals with other platforms.
Yeah, I think there's two parts of it. One is what you said, which is just like they don't think it's a problem. At the end of the day, they've sort of looked at the numbers. They were scared when Ninja left. They were scared when Shroud left, and it turns out it didn't really affect. And so it's like, why do we need to bid so much if we have the numbers? We know that it doesn't affect us. That's number one. And then number two is Amazon just wants them to be more profitable. Amazon is pressuring Twitch to not be a money sink. Let me just say that it was my impression that Twitch, despite not being profitable, was often given a pass by Amazon because Amazon Game Studios was even way more unprofitable. Amazon Game Studios is their other, they launched Breakout and a bunch of games like that. And that was such a disaster, I think, that Twitch got a pass. But now that we're a few years past that, I think Amazon is finally trying to whip Twitch into shape and make sure Twitch is a company that can sort of stand on its own and isn't, a money sink. And that means not giving massive deals to every creator that's threatening to leave. That means upping the number of ads that are run. You see that on Twitch all the time. That means controlling for the large sub-split deals they've given to creators in the past. Twitch announced recently that they're cutting back on all the previous deals back to a flat 50% because there's a ton of great creators that have had like $4 deals or $4.50 deals, or like some creators have all of their sub money because they were done back when Twitch was more desperate. And so they're trying to claw that back and turn it into a profitable business. So those two things are why they're not bidding. Whether it works or not remains to be seen, because YouTube is a real threat. YouTube is the first serious threat Twitch has ever had, I think.
I agree. I think that the distance that exists between the two companies right now is specifically the technology. Discovery for live on YouTube is terrible. Discovery for VOD on YouTube is great. That's part of the the algorithm is part of the reason YouTube has been so successful is, I'm watching some other gaming content creator and I come across you or someone else that like maybe I don't know if I'm an audience member, right? And I just find somebody else new and it, and then the sub button and it feeds really well. But I think the technology distance, even though not even on the back end side of things, I actually prefer to watch streams on YouTube than I do Twitch because the quality's better. Google has better hosting and it looks better.
You can rewind live easily?
Yeah, it's fantastic on a player perspective. It's just finding new people it seems almost impossible.
Totally. That's their only downside, but they've made some smart plays. And again, the people they're picking up, it's a smart strategy. They're getting a ton of, the extremely brand safe, extremely positive communities that collaborate with each other so that their friends can hop over and watch multiple people and sort of, they have an ecosystem instead of just a single creator like a Ninja or a Shroud. They have multiple people like Myth plus Valkyrie plus Courage plus, people that could watch all the different streams. So it's smarter. It's definitely smarter. They still have a big gap to close, but end of the day, YouTube is much bigger as a platform. And so that's scary. And VOD is massive. VOD for gaming is massive. And so if they can convert that audience, it's a trouble for Twitch for sure.
Well, it's always has been, right? VOD.
Yeah.
I always think of gaming as one of the first verticals of VOD that YouTube really did a lot. You think about what MCNs used to look like back in the early 2010s, late aughts, right? Like so many of those had gaming creators in them. Think about it, Machinima, and they were one of the biggest MCNs on platform at one point, and it was all gaming content. And obviously that's different now, but gaming's always been a big part of YouTube's DNA to me.
Yeah, and again, gaming's almost like it's such a broad term now. It's because it becomes so culturally relevant. Like people 25 and under, almost everybody games. Gaming is just immersed into the culture, and so it could be called gaming content even if they're not, they're not playing a game. They're just like part of a gaming related group and a community, and I think of plenty of people who majority stream just chatting are considered, they're gamers. They're part of the gaming community. It's a gaming stream. And it's more of a cultural thing now than just like somebody grinding a game.
So one thing I want to talk about that I really wanted to talk to you about, because something you said earlier as well kind of like comes back to this, that you don't see yourself as a creator forever, that you have, obviously you have other skill sets, you have a full-time job doing something else. It's not make or break if this falls apart for you. Obviously it's nice. But one thing I think that a lot of gaming influencers struggle with, and that I think that kind of just younger influencers on the internet in general, but obviously a lot of them gaming related, as you just mentioned, is the responsibility of being an influencer, the relationships that they build with people, the brand deals that they activate, the places that they go, and what they do. And we've seen this a lot from brand product perspective, from crypto perspective, of some of these people playing in crypto only for the people behind the crypto project to rug pull or whatever it may be, right? For it just to be this pitfall trap for all of their people. So I want to talk about this a little bit before we take some audience questions later on. First, I want to talk about the responsibility of being famous. You know, again, I know you're humble and you're saying you're like nowhere near Ludwig or anyone else, but you are, you know, clearly, by the people in the space, by the people that watch your content on a recurring basis, clearly you are famous to some level of degree, right? And so talk to me about how you associate and how you think about the responsibility of that fame and how you act.
Yeah. I will try not to make a joke. Let me be serious. Let me try to give you a real answer. The honest answer is I do think about it, specifically with things like sponsorships. Because I not even, you know what though, I don't want to sound like, I really don't want to be too self-serious here. The reason I don't take sponsorships that would make me uncomfortable is because I don't want to feel personally to myself like a hypocrite. And I spend so much of my stream railing against things like crypto rug pulls. You know, I talk about it all the time. Like I rail against that stuff. I rail against scams. Um, I talk about, you know, deceptive and shitty marketing. And so to to jump in the middle of that and be like, by the way, check out stake.com and start gambling. It would just feel, you know, even with a big paycheck, it would just feel scummy to myself. I would feel like not, it would take the fun out of being able to like rail on those things because I would feel like I have no ground to stand on. So I don't think I'm being a saint or anything. It's just like, I don't want to feel super shitty to myself. But I also, listen, you mentioned in your last question, some people are trying to get the money while they're here. I have a more nuanced take on it. I don't like really love to bash on people that have taken some of this stuff. In my larger term, like a lot of this stuff needs to be regulated at a higher level because at the end of the day, if someone's not going to lose viewership and they can make a bunch more money and all they're going to get is some people, you know, wagging their finger at them, whether this person takes it or the next person does it, someone's going to take a deal like that. So there needs to be something done from Twitch's side or from higher up to stop things like, you know, from a majority young audience getting pushed crypto gambling and like crypto schemes that seem appealing, but then are actually rug pull. All this stuff is like totally scummy, and it shouldn't be just relying on us to shame influencers into not taking it. There should be another better reason. But yeah, that's my take. Is like I think you should try to take stuff that aligns a little bit with what you're saying, with the personality you've cultivated.
Something we've seen Pokemon and some others talk about over time is the parasocial relationship that their viewers feel they develop with them. I think that happens a lot with smaller creators, kind of those people in the like 1,000 to 15,000, you know, followers, etc., where like they're big enough, but the community is still like relatively kind of tight knit, right? Like people know each other in their community, they know the streamer. How do you deal with that as somebody who has kind of gained this fame over the past 2 years, dealing with sort of keeping that separation from your viewers, from your fans, and making sure that you aren't building those parasocial relationships that could be potentially unhealthy?
I had a more hardline stance on this back in the day, and I've kind of softened. Here's what I think now. I think, first of all, in this world, especially in the past few years, loneliness is at an all-time high. Like loneliness is rising every year. That's like in just studied reports. People just feel more disconnected, more isolated. And what I've started to think of Twitch as is like if you get hungry, you could eat a healthy meal, and that's recommended, or you could eat a hamburger. That's going to solve your hunger. I think of Twitch as the hamburger of human connection. Twitch is the fast food of human connection. And I don't think people are actually, I think most people just use it like as that. You're hungry at night, you get Taco Bell, you're feeling a little down, you get into a streamer. And it's not that big of a deal. It's like, you shouldn't shame someone for having fast food now and then. The only problem is if it's the only thing you ever eat. Like if someone gets completely isolated, completely lost in the sauce, they're totally reliant on Twitch for all of their social interaction, and it's never going to be filling. It's never going to give you that the nourishment that you really need as a person. That's where there's a problem. But I think that's a smaller percentage of people think. I think most people just have, because I've done this. I've done it as a Twitch consumer. I remember some periods where early COVID or when I was on trips or just times where I felt like, I don't know, like isolated or like people are busier. And I get more into Twitch in those moments. I watch a little bit more than I would at other times. And it's not the end of the world. And it ebbs and flows. So I think most people consume Twitch in that way. And also, end of the day, it's also entertainment. It's also just really funny. And I think most people also consume it as just entertainment. So I don't think it's as big of a problem as it's sort of made out to be. I think there is a small fraction of people. And when you're a big creator, that small number, that small percent can still be a lot of people that get way too far into it. And I don't know this solution to that. I know that some of the big creators that I've hung out with and talked to, they have to have real realities like security, and they have to worry about, when they buy houses or apartments that it gets leaked and people show up at their door. I've had a guy that actually I have no problem with now. He's a nice kid, but he showed up in my workplace and did backflips. And it's like, you can't, there's real issues that can arise, and you have to balance that and set expectations with the audience. But I don't think it's like as widespread of a deeply parasocial, like it's a huge problem as people might make it out to be. I think, in my experience from having seen both sides of it.
Do you think that the age plays a part of that a little bit too, in terms of, obviously creators are young and old. There are creators who are much older on the internet, on other platforms, not Twitch primarily. But some of those people have to deal with this, but it doesn't seem like it's as much volume as they do on Twitch or YouTube or TikTok or Discord even. And do you think that age makes it a little bit worse than maybe it is in some other places?
Yeah, for sure. But also, I think what's unique about live streaming, not Twitch or YouTube, is that, there is no platform in human history that allows you to feel so connected. If someone streams 8+ hours, multiple days in a row, I mean, from your perspective, from your brain's perspective, you're hanging out with that person. That
Yep.
you're close with that person. You're spending a lot of time with them. You're seeing their reactions to everything. It's very difficult to put on a persona that is entirely not yourself for 8 hours. I think I don't believe it when people say like I was just that's not me. That's I think most people reveal most of who they are on stream if they stream enough hours, because it's just like you can't keep it up for that long. So even TikTok, I don't think there's any other place that gives you that much in-depth contact with somebody. That's probably why I think it causes it more than YouTube ever did.
In researching for this episode, I came across your tweet from a few weeks ago about Mogul Money and sort of how proud you were of Ludwig going from you and Nathan Sands were on the first episode. And now, obviously, he's been able to do this in person as a very large live event at, a subsection of the Los Angeles Rams football stadium. And I want to talk about that. It doesn't seem like creator kind of, let's call it in real life activations are so much a gimmick anymore as much as they could be, right? Like that's almost like that show kind of fringes on the like almost like a comedy show, etc. Right? Like it's got a bunch of different other things to it that it pulls from other parts of entertainment. And it's no longer just, hey, famous esports player is here during halftime at a sports games playing something, on the floor, which I've attended a few of those. I've been truly, like I went to one in Boston a few years ago as well. During a Bruins game where they had a fighting game player on the floor playing against the audience, and because his esports team was affiliated with the hockey team. But now it doesn't seem like it's a gimmick anymore, and it is becoming sort of possible to do IRL entertainment related to streamers, not just at TwitchCon or some, any of the gaming conventions, but that they can be the standalone thing. And I want to ask you about like what opportunity do you see in that as someone who is both a marketer and a personality?
So much. It's the most exciting thing in the whole industry for me right now. And I was telling Ludwig at that event at the after party, because I sat in the first couple rows and I was like, I could look around during that event and see every streamer in the first couple rows and the gears were turning. You could just see every single person was thinking, "How this is cool." Like, what's my version of this? I definitely think, because I'm someone who reads a lot of books about old Hollywood, and I like to like learn about industries as they sort of came to be. And if you look at the early days of even things like TV, we're seeing a lot of that happen now. Like the first big wave of TV that was big was game shows. And the first wave of scripted content that you're seeing on Twitch is game shows. I think we're gonna see, even past the game shows, more and more ideas. People are gonna be really creative as they realize that it works. We're gonna see live scripted content hybrids. We're gonna see streamed rap battles. We're gonna see streamed Whose Line Is It Anyway type live comedy. We're gonna see sketch comedians we're gonna see a bunch of stuff happen. I think live streaming is in a very, very infant stage right now, even as big as we think it is now. I think all the creators you talk about being big are going to be small potatoes compared to where the big live streaming creators are in 5-10 years. And I think we're going to see a lot of crazy content get developed. It's very, very exciting and very interesting. I think about it a lot, but I don't have any answer of like exactly where, but I just know that everybody's gears are turning. They see opportunity. The audience is there and growing. And that's a recipe for success and for a lot of new things to happen.
One thing that I want to close on before we start talking about or taking some audience questions here, I want to ask you one last thing for myself, unless I have follow-ups there. But I do want to ask about gaming becoming other parts of entertainment. I run a production company now. I have direct exposure to this. I am constantly working on audio ideas on the podcasting side. Obviously, you're on one now. I'm building out sort of what television looks like, unscripted or scripted, right? And sort of what that is. There is a huge demand. I've said this before, from platforms to have gaming content, whether it be HBO Max, Apple TV Plus. We just saw Riot launch a series on Paramount Plus, right? That's currently ongoing and is about to end in the next couple weeks or next week or so. So we've seen this huge increase for all these platforms to want to get a piece of this pie. When you think about that, what opportunities exist and how do you think they will differ from what we currently consume on those platforms, be it Netflix, Hulu, etc.?
I think it's interesting because those platforms just don't have any gaming DNA. They completely don't have it in their ecosystem. They don't hire people that care about gaming. Gaming has been so far from their understanding that it's been very difficult for them to like get on the gaming bus. It's sort of caught all streaming services and Hollywood in general as a blindside. Gaming is now so much bigger than the combined box office and TV, and it's the biggest entertainment industry by far, and it totally caught most of the people off guard. So they're trying to catch up. They're playing frantic game of catch up, and I think they're trying to do it right, and they're trying to figure it out. Some more right than others. I liked Paramount's show. I only saw the first couple episodes, but it felt authentic and it was cool. They're in the right direction. But again, it's gonna take a while for them to catch up. They just don't have the people that are champions for it internally. They don't really understand it. They don't know what good looks like, and so I don't know. It could easily happen there, or it could happen entirely homegrown. I think end of the day, people that love gaming and want authentic gaming content have already found where to watch it. It's YouTube and Twitch and TikTok. And so they're going there. And I think rather than Netflix, like creating a new show for gamers, it's going to be XQC. It's going to be, someone's going to get the budget and make shows that gamers want to watch on the platforms they're already on.
Brandon, thank you. This has been a fantastic and enlightening discussion. Definitely really thorough. I don't think we kind of have enough of these types of discussions about sort of the industry more broadly. So as people request, I'm looking at the hashtag. We have some really good ones, actually. Oh, we're going to have Fish Sticks go first. There you go.
So you guys know I'm a huge esports fan, and I love following every single esport, like you're talking about earlier, the big tentpole events for every game. But I feel this existential dread as somebody that's building a startup in esports that Gen Z is actually trending so far away from being as obsessed as esports as maybe Atrioc, you and I, and are the younger millennials. Obviously, Atrioc, you got your start in esports, and Jacob, you're the esports journalist, and here we are talking about streamers. So do you think esports is on the downtrend? Like, is there a path back to the promised land of the Newzoo reports, or are you on the whole net just pessimistic about the future, given that TikTok and influencers and streamers just seem to be growing about literally 10 times faster than esports is today?
Brandon, you want to take that one first? I have some thoughts too.
Yeah, I can jump in. I'll love to hear your thoughts as well, Jacob. But what's interesting is, if you guys are listening, this is my former boss, Fish Sticks, at Twitch, and he also runs a esports app called Juked, which is an awesome way for people to connect over esports communities. And what I think is interesting about it is that I don't see esports as growing in the same way as we liked it. We liked it back in the day with these sort of hardcore, forums and communities of people that were really passionate about just their game. But I do think gaming is bigger than ever. It's bigger every year. People play more games than ever, and they watch competitions more than ever. So like that's still growing. I think esports is still growing and has a very bright and huge future. But I think cracking the code of how they consume it and how to tie it into, I don't know, like the way 100 Thieves has sort of turned esports into culture almost. There's something more there, I think. And I think you're doing it too, with turning esports into like a way to connect with friends and make communities. And it's almost like a badge of identity rather than something that's so focused on the games and the strategies and the the way it was, I think, when I was coming up in it. But Jacob, I don't know, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, you actually teed me up pretty well there. And I think the way that you answered my last question is somewhat relevant to this discussion as well. So one thing I've been saying to a lot of people more recently and writing about is that you have to go to where these people are, where this audience is. And you have to do this really fine balance. Ben, when I think about you, when I think about Brandon, and when I think about myself, we are hardcore esports fans, right? Or have been kind of at one point in our lives where we're consuming a ton of content. If somebody starts talking to us in broad strokes about esports games, right? Like if they talk to us like we're five about Counter-Strike or about Smash, we will immediately check out of the conversation because we know these things, right? We've played these games, we've consumed these games, we're experts on the subject matter. I think, though, that something that's not done enough in esports product right now, period, and I sadly will include the Riot Players Paramount Plus series in this because I thought parts of it were too niche for a larger audience. I also think the platform is too niche. Paramount Plus is a really tiny platform compared to some of the others. So I think you have to do two things. I think you have to find a really good balance of marketing content to people who are cursory interested in gaming. I have a lot of people that subscribe to my new Substack that fall into this category. I've done a little bit of audience analysis on this. They found my Substack through somebody else on the platform that isn't related to gaming, but they're interested in gaming, so they've subscribed to my thing and they want to read my content, right? And so I have to dumb things down. I'm making quotes on the video recording a little bit to make that accessible to them, because otherwise they're going to be lost if I start writing the way that I used to write back on Esports Heaven or .esports back early in my career, right? Because that I was writing for you guys, not for them. And so you have to find this balance of being somewhere in the middle where you're not pricing out or like not necessarily sort of boxing out the hardcore audience, but you are also opening the floodgate for the people who are not as educated as we are as longtime esports fans. And I don't say educated as a way to, sort of demean anyone, period. I'm just saying more generally. And then I think also you have to go to where they are as on a platform. Twitch obviously is a great example of this. It's part of what we were talking about with Twitch having so much of the audience. That's where people are. You're not going to pull them away from that easily, right? Think about all the millions of dollars we were talking about YouTube is spent to make that happen just a little bit. It's not even to scale yet. It's just a little bit, and they're putting millions of dollars in creator deal to make that happen. And so to me, you have to go to where they are. And I think it's part of the reason from a commercial perspective, speculating here, that Riot series actually hasn't worked on Paramount Plus from a commercial perspective, because gamers aren't going to pay to go behind that paywall. They just aren't. Even with a free month sign up, it's a little bit too difficult. But if you were to launch something that was interesting to non-gamers and gamers alike on Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Apple TV Plus, some of these platforms where it's like, oh great, I'm on my iPhone, all I have to do is one click away to sign up and I'm in, right? Like that's as easy as it is to get to Apple TV Plus, or places like Hulu and Netflix where they already have subscriptions because they consume other non-gaming content there. I think that's really important. You have to go to where they are and you have to create the content with in mind that it can be accessible to non-gamers. Great question though, Ben. Okay, Pip, what's up? What's your question?
Howdy. Earlier you talked about a little bit about the esports economy and how you felt like you didn't feel really good on it. I've always been interested on like the comparison between traditional sports teams and like esports teams, with traditional sports teams being able to rely on like the fan base or the city that they're situated in. And I've always wondered, because most sports, at least here in NA, most esports teams are based in Los Angeles or California. If there is this a reliable way to like grow a fan base in a similar way to a traditional sports team?
Can I take that first, Brandon? As someone
Yeah,
who
jump on
reported
it.
on the
Yeah,
who
yeah, you
reported on
talk
the
about all
Overwatch
this.
League? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think locality works in North America quite yet. I don't think we're at the scale for gaming to work for locality to be a massive driver, especially in the United States. Especially in frequency. Frequency is really important to answer this question, right? When the World Championship comes around every 4 years in North America and it's sort of placed in a way that, you get your regional stuff. Think about where it is this year. Mexico City, Atlanta, Georgia, New York, and San Francisco, right? Like those are sort of big geographical hubs. If you live in the Carolinas, you can go to Atlanta. If you live in Connecticut or Vermont, you can come down to New York and enjoy those events, right? But that only happens once every 4 years. I think the frequency that we saw and the lessons that we learned from the Overwatch League, which was doing its traveling roadshow before COVID, we started to see when like Washington had, I think, 2 events in like a 3-week span. The second event was lower attendance than the first. And I think that was really indicative of the fact that, like, yeah, we were really excited to have the first one, not so excited to have one in another frequency. So I think that's not true for the United States yet. And I think that's because esports is not at scale. And also, just to kind of go back to Ben's question really quickly, I do think that esports will continue to grow, but I think it will continue to grow with gaming. The bigger gaming gets, the bigger esports gets, because esports is a fraction of gaming. It's and so it's just going to take more time. And but I do think that the answer I just gave to that question about United States is totally different in Europe. Europe is incredibly localized, and I think part of it's a language thing. I think part of it is a culture thing, the way that they have soccer clubs, etc., set up. You think today about the announcement that Team Heretics has bought Misfits and sort of enterprise value of like $50 million for an LEC slot or 50 million euro for an LEC slot. That's nuts, but it works because Team Heretics is massive in Spain. They have a huge cultural audience that is like, great, like Spanish esports, like this is a huge deal. Now we have our team, right, in the league, and there's only one other team in the league. That's sustainable because it's Europe, and Europe has better infrastructure than we do. And then the United States, they have better public transit. You can go from Barcelona to Berlin and enjoy these events if you want to. But that is not the case here in the US. And I think there's a lot of barriers both inside the industry and outside the industry that keep locality from being a big thing in esports in America. Okay, off to you, Brandon. Sorry, that's Brandon.
I have nothing really to add. You crushed it. That's a perfect answer. Yeah.
So Dylan asked, is there anything that would make you consider going full-time streaming? Personally, I think it's better if you do streaming as a side because it lets you stream whatever you want and it doesn't pressure you into following what's popular on Twitch, etc.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. That line of thought. I will tell you that it's not a financial reason that would ever make me do it. Because I already make more. I think Nvidia pays me really well, and I have some stock, and stock's done really well, and like I'm good on that. But streaming still makes more than my current job. I've openly admitted that. I think my boss knows this. Like streaming makes more than my current job, and so like if I wanted to, from a financial perspective, I could go full time. The reason I don't currently is because I really like my job. I enjoy the work. It's fun. I feel like I'm stretching a part of my brain that I don't stretch when I'm streaming, and I like I don't know. I like feeling like I have a real opinion with other professionals and talking. You know what I'm saying? Streaming is very goofy and it's fun and I have a great time, but it's a lot of jokes and it's fun to like do something serious during the day. So that's why I don't quit. But to be honest, the only thing on my mind as I'm trying to figure it all out is work-life balance and more time with my fiance, who I'm marrying within the next few weeks. Wedding's coming right up. So I work all day and then I stream at night, and that is a tough balance to do consistently over and over. So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm working with NVIDIA. I'm trying to figure out how I can structure everything in my life to be able to do everything I want to do. But it's not a financial reason that whatever I choose. It's 100% based on like how do I have a life that I enjoy, and I just enjoy both things a lot.
I feel that. I also have 2 jobs, but both are for myself. So but I understand that balance. I'm doing like 70 hours a week right now. It's tough.
Yes, yeah, it's tough. I feel you.
I want to follow up on that actually, and then we'll take the last audience question. Does streaming feel like a job?
When I'm live, no. When I hit the go live button, I always have a good time. It feels relaxing. It is an energy giving activity, not an energy taking activity for me. I enjoy streaming. There are things that I have to do for streaming when I'm not live that are a job, and I've been bad about them. And I'm finally, in order to get that life balance back to normal, I've been hiring people to help build a team that allows me to just focus on the part I like and still have a lot of free time to do my real job and to spend time with the fiance. Things like, making your thumbnails, making your titles, paying editors, figuring out how to like organize the editing staff, hiring a TikTok guy. There's a lot of organizational stuff you have to do. You have to meet with emote people and get emotes made and figure out what they want and give feedback. And there's probably enough to do, a few hours every day on meetings and checking up and meeting with sponsors and figuring out, all that stuff is difficult. And I was doing it alone until recently. And that was the real draining activity. When I go live, I love it.
All right, one more question on this specifically because I wanted to ask this earlier and forgot. And we'll say this is shout outs to Nilay Patel, the Verge managing editor, because he always asks this type of question and calls it the decoder question on his podcast. I don't expect you to have the immediate accountant answer in your head, and I'm not looking for sort of drill down answers. But in terms of streaming and YouTube revenue income versus spend on all of those other people and your percent, what is your P&L margin right now?
That's a great question. It's pretty high. I probably get 60%. My margin total, if I had to guess, I'd probably take on. I mean, I give a pretty good chunk of the YouTube revenue, and that's where the majority of my income comes from is YouTube revenue. Yeah, somewhere between 60, 75. If you're not counting taxes, right?
No. EBITDA, Brandon.
Yeah,
EBITDA.
yep.
So we had one other audience question, but the person has not requested to speak. I'm sorry that we can't get to everyone, but we would literally keep this going with everybody who's requested for probably another 2 hours. I don't want to do that to Brandon, and also I need to eat because I've been working.
I have to go live soon too. So
yeah. So we'll end that on this one. Thank you again, everyone. I definitely want to have Brandon back at some point too, maybe with some other creators too, because I think it could be a cool conversation.
Yeah, it's fun.
So Hemis asked, as someone who recently got into the content creator space, how do you see the likely upcoming recession to affect the market as a subsection of entertainment, which is usually considered a luxury expense? Longtime viewer, love the YouTube content. And also, this is a really good piggybacking off an article that you should all go read today, which is Nathan Grayson wrote an article for the Washington Post about Twitch and Twitch streamers having to tighten their belts. And he interviewed Ray Deshare, the CEO of Night Media, who manage Hassan and manage Mr. Beast and a bunch of others. And then he also interviewed big and small Twitch streamers. Really, really good piece. Nathan does good work. So yeah, back to the original.
Yeah, first of all, that article is amazing. And Reed and his company, Night Media, actually put out, I don't know if it was leaked or it was published or...
No, they published it, 100%.
Yeah, they published it. The letter they sent to all their creators about what to do during the recession. And I found that it was great. It was an awesome piece. And if you're a creator, check it out because it tells you a lot of what you need to know. I concur with it. Basically, the idea is that people are going to be having less disposable income starting very soon. And so things are not going to be as easy in terms of sub numbers. Ads are going to be less. I'm already seeing it, actually. I'm already seeing it on YouTube. CPM is down. CPM is, and I've talked around to other creators. It's down. There's less free money to go around. That's not as easy. So it's going to be a more difficult belt tightening environment. I think people can still thrive, still grow. I think viewership numbers are still going to grow. I think the creator economy is still incredibly important, but I think there's going to be a short-term shock as we go from the infinite money free environment of 2020, 2021 into a possible recession and definitely a negative economy.
Well, that is going to be it for us. Brandon, we'll let you go.
Oh, we ended on a downer?
No. It's fine. I actually think that's a really important question.
Yeah, people always give me crap on my stream for talking about this stuff because it's depressing. It's not the most fun thing to hear. And so you really had me, you had me end on the saddest one.
No, I totally, okay. Prem is encouraging me to take a shit post question. So you mentioned your wedding earlier. I've seen multiple people tweet about this, and they've asked, do you plan to speedrun your wedding?
No, I don't plan to speedrun it or stream it or do any content. I get this question all the time. Everyone wants me to put up a camera and have Ludwig mug for the camera. And I'm not going to do any sort of, it's like a really special day. My fiance is not anything to do with consecration. Her family and my family don't know it. Don't have anything to do with it. We're going to keep it real low-key, friends and family, no content, no sponsor, no Raid Shadow Legends sponsor on the cake, nothing. It could make a lot of money, but I'm going to keep it out of it for this wedding.
That's all for today's show. If you enjoyed listening to Visionaries, please rate and leave a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Special thanks to Sammy Deigel and Prem Thottamkaro for working on this episode. And if you'd like to join into the conversation live, please join us on Twitter Spaces. You can find us at Overcome. We'll see you on Thursday.